you've been saying for quite a while. I know, and I know you're homies with Dr. Cowan and Dr. Kaufman, and
Right.
I partied with Dr. Andrew Kaufman one time.
All
And that
right.
guy knows how to party. Trust me. You guys will have a great time.
I've never seen Andrew party, but I get the feeling he's probably good at it.
Oh, he knows how to have a great time, brother. Trust me.
Joe and you have something to discuss. Joe is still psychologically scarred from when he was forced to sip pink champagne when we were celebrating the Thank You Body rally, even though he lacked an enzyme to digest the alcohol.
Drink. Dr. Kaufman, I don't drink, okay? Oh, because you're a board-certified addiction psychiatrist? What, you too cool for old school? Drink. Dr. Kaufman, I can't drink. What do you mean you can't? Basically, Asians are known, some Asians have this condition where, if they drink, their fucking liver doesn't have the enzyme to break down alcohol properly. So I get flushed. Asian man, what you're talking about is aldehyde dehydrogenase deficiency. Get your fucking facts straight. So basically, alcohol breaks down to acetaldehyde, and this enzyme aldehyde dehydrogenase breaks down acetaldehyde, not alcohol. Now you're talking some stupid shit. I thought you knew your science. I thought you were board certified in addictions. And you don't even know about aldehyde dehydrogenase deficiency? Psst. Get your ass out of here, man.
I was surprised.
It's amazing that my memory is so different from yours of this event.
And it's amazing how you're so calm right now during this podcast interview, but at that party, oh my Lord.
I wasn't there, so I can't comment. So I'm just an observer in this. So,
oh my God.
Dr. Kaufman, why was it so important for you to get me to drink that night? I mean, I tried to calmly explain to you that I have an aldehyde dehydrogenase.
Well, listen, you told me that you were an addiction psychiatrist, and I know they're all alcoholics. So I was just bringing out your natural state.
But, his argument, which cannot be refuted, is that they have yet to isolate part 1 of this shit. So how are you going to isolate part 2 and part 3? Show us the data.
Indian variant of the coronavirus, saying that there is no such variant that has been cited by the World Health Organization. So the B1617, which is being called the Indian variant, or the variant that was first found in India, the government of India has now issued an advisory to social media platforms to remove any such references. Sunil Prabhu joins us with the very latest. Sunil, no such variant according to the WHO, says the Indian government.
That's right. I think technically the government of India is correct about the fact that they don't want any social media platform, and that's the reason why they've invoked the new information technology rules to tell all social media to remove any kind of reference to that B1617 variant that you're talking about, which is now seen as the Indian variant, not to refer to it as the Indian variant at all.
These public health officials say, well, this is the way we isolate it now. But you said before, well, the way you're doing it is wrong, motherfucker. It's wrong.
I don't know whether you saw that FDA document very recently, last couple of weeks, that admitted that when it was putting together a protocol for the PCR test, which of course is not testing for the virus, they didn't have the original virus. They had a computer program version of it.
Yes.
And that's what the original SARS-CoV-2 is. It's a computer program. The variants are little tweaks of the computer program. That's what's going on. And then you look at the figures, infection to fatality rate. And according to studies out of Stanford, it's between 0.23% and 0.15%. But you take those figures and you think, well, that's tiny. Yeah. But now you've got to take off those figures, all the fake cases, which has given you your initial number of infections. And then you've got to take off all the fake death certificates, which are giving you your fake COVID-19 deaths, not fake deaths, COVID-19 deaths. Take those away from the 0.23%, the 0.15%, and you're left with zero. And this is why the Freedom of Information Act requests that have gone round local councils in Britain have been asking them for the figures between 2015 and 2020 of funerals and cremations, of burials and cremations in their area. And not one case has shown more in 2020 than some previous years.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but here's what I want to ask you. Strategically, if the idea is we need to get more people to wake up, more numbers, so we could oppose this thing together. Because if one man opposes the mass population, that person's going to get slaughtered. But if we have numbers, then we stand a chance.
Yeah.
But my strong belief, and I don't want to piss you off here, but I just have to ask you this. Do you honestly believe that at this point, saying that they haven't isolated this shit and presenting data to people is the right way of waking up people? Because so far in doing that, people are getting pissed off. Like, do you know that my uncle got sick from this in New York and he was hospitalized? How can you say that this thing doesn't exist? So
yeah,
I was thinking the better strategy would be to question certain other things, such as like ivermectin, and saying, hey, isn't that interesting? Whether you agree with ivermectin or not, isn't it interesting that there's this FDA approved medication called ivermectin that virtually eliminates this thing in petri dishes, in petri studies, plenty of studies backing it up. Isn't it interesting that the government don't want to push that? And my conversion rate so far, David, has been 100%. Everyone I asked about that, whether you believe it or not, they say that is some bullshit, that they're not pushing ivermectin and they're only pushing this.
And I want to talk about that we have a solution to this crisis. There is a drug that is proving to be of miraculous impact. And when I say miracle, I do not use that term lightly. And I don't want to be sensationalized when I say that. That is a scientific recommendation based on mountains of data that has emerged in the last 3 months. Mountains of data have emerged from many centers and countries around the world showing the miraculous effectiveness of ivermectin. It basically obliterates transmission of this virus.
Yeah, my view is you tell the truth and the truth will do its work. I want all the information out there and then it will do its work. It will, some information will get some people to think and others will reject it. Other information will get other people to think. And so we need to put everything out there. And, you know, to get people to realize also the scale of the scam that's gone on. This is not a little scam.
Yeah.
This is not a little tweaking and manipulation. This is a massive, global, mega whopper lie. As the Nazis said, the bigger the lie, the more we'll believe it, because people think that authority will not tell them the truth on everything, but they'd never lie this much. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. So people reject the idea that anyone would lie this much. So the bigger the lie, the more we'll believe it. And I just think we need to put all information out there and let it do its work. You see, and also to challenge the system to produce the evidence. Again, Freedom of Information Act requests have gone out all over the world to health authorities, including in Britain, and governments, asking for the scientific paper that shows that it's been isolated and shown to exist and has been shown to cause what they say it causes. And not one of them has been able to produce it. There was a court case in Canada recently where someone was being fined for breaking COVID regulations. And in the court case, he demanded the authorities prove it existed. And they couldn't. When I came out with this in an interview, which got a massive amount of hits before it was censored, April the 6th, 2020 it was. That's when all hell broke loose in terms of censoring me.
Another thing is that in 1890, a guy called Robert Koch, who was a bacteriologist and a physician, he developed something called the Koch postulates. And these were 4 criteria for proving that an agent, a so-called infectious agent, is the cause of what you say it is. This includes everyone who is subject to this agent has the same symptoms. 2, that you have isolated this agent, call it a virus, bacteria, whatever, you've isolated it, so there's no other material, only that. So there's no contamination, there's no false positives in the way I've described. You are only isolating that. But when you take that and you, say, inject it into a living host, that host will get what you say that is causing. And when you've got that host, you are able, number 4, to take that material you say is causing the illness, the infectious illness, out of the person, and again inject it into someone else, and they will get it. In terms of COVID-19, not one single one of those 4 postulates, which have been used since 1890 by mainstream medicine the world over to prove that this is infecting and causing that, not one of them have been used and fulfilled. None of them.
I'm not welded to the idea from the start that there is no virus. I'm open to what is the truth.
Now, David, in your book, The Answer, the final chapter, when you discuss the answer, it lies in self-identity and self-awareness.
Yeah.
I thought that the answer was going to be go fuck yourself or just say no. But you're saying the answer lies in self-identity. Can you just, I know you got to run soon, but can you try to explain that?
Yeah, well, I'd be very happy to talk about this. But, you know, giving them a finger comes from self-identity. They are the same thing. And, you know, what this cult wants and how it structures society is for people to self-identify the I. Who am I? What's my power potential? It wants that to be self-identified with the labels of a human life. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this race, I'm that race, I'm this culture and that culture, this sexuality, that sexuality, this religion, that religion. And they are the labels of experience. And they're also the labels of limitation, because they are the labels of the 5-sense world which perceives limitation. And if you look at the whole woke mentality and the woke way of looking at the world, which has all been cult orchestrated and cult financed, then what they're doing with the wokers is subdividing the original labels, so they're in smaller and smaller labels of self-identity. So now you have this long list of letters, LGBT, and then on it goes, where people are persuaded that they have to self-identify the I, their sense of self, with the minutiae of their sexual preference. You know, my reaction is, look, I don't care what your sexual preference is. As long as you put it where someone is accepting it, I have no problem what you do with it, right? Yeah, I have no problem.
New Zealand weightlifter Laurel Hubbard is set to become the first transgender woman to compete at the Games next week.
Yeah, so ahead of Hubbard's Olympic debut, the International Olympic Committee, International Weightlifting Federation, and New Zealand Olympic Committee, they held a joint press event to discuss the topic of transgender inclusion at the Olympics.
Can you give us an idea of the complexities in measuring fairness?
It's extremely difficult because there is a lot of science that's available comparing, for example, cisgender men, that's men who are born as men and identify as men, with cisgender women. There's relatively little scientific material that's available around trans athletes and trans women athletes. So we do the best that we can based on the available information and constantly reviewing the situation, understanding that science is constantly developing.
Do what you like. I have a very simple philosophy. Do what you like, so as long as you don't impose it on anyone else. But now this self-identity has to come from it. They have to self-define their sexuality. It's to this minutiae of I. And every time you fall into that, you're moving further and further from influence by the real I, which is consciousness. When you identify with the labels, and if you stop anybody and you say, hello, nice to meet you, who are you? They'll give you the labels. Yeah. They won't say, I am all that is, has been, and ever can be, having a human experience, nice to meet you. And you say, oh, I thought I recognized you, so am I, nice to meet you. It's the labels. So the labels are, they'll give you their birthplace, their current location, their job, maybe their sexuality these days. These are the labels of a human life. They're not who we are, they're what we're experiencing. But when you redefine your self-identity as the consciousness that's having the experience, everything changes. Because while the 5 senses are perceiving form with empty space in between, there's no empty space in between. Everything's connected by a field of consciousness, energy, information, like a Wi-Fi field.
I hope to show people through my research that water has a memory of its own. Dr. Emoto's laboratory does research on water samples, which are subjected to various forms of outside influence. The impressions made upon the water are recorded by swiftly freezing it in a cryogenic chamber. This is what water heated in a microwave oven looks like. This is the effect of a mobile telephone. Somebody said thank you to this water. Excuse me. You disgust me. In all of the world's religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, it is the practice to recite a prayer before taking food or to consecrate the food during major religious holidays. How often do we stop and think, what for? And how did the certainty arise in such dissimilar religions that this is the right thing to do? Why did something that science is only now trying to understand seem obvious to our ancestors? It turns out that the frequency of vibrations in the prayers of any religion uttered in any language is 8 hertz, which corresponds to the frequency of the oscillations of the Earth's magnetic field. Therefore, a prayer, pronounced with love, creates a harmonic structure in water, which is an ingredient of absolutely all food.
And we are interacting with this Wi-Fi field, and this cult wants to control the frequency and nature of this Wi-Fi field on the basis of, if you want to control and influence all the fish, then you influence the sea, and then you'll influence all the fish. You don't have to even go to individual fishes and sea life. You change the sea, you change anything within it. And so they want to hold this field down in a low vibrational state. When you self-identify with being the consciousness that's having the experience, that expansion of self-identity expands your awareness deeper into this field. And so you're now accessing more of the potential and possibility within this field. You're interacting with it in a much more expanded way. So if you are a 5 sense prisoner, you're in the 5 sense Alcatraz, and you perceive that you are little me and have no power, then every emotion, every mental state is generated as a frequency, and it's your frequency field and the nature of it is dictated by your perceptual state. This is why perceptions are so vital. This is why they lead to everything. So your perceptual state, your frequency field representing that perceptual state, is interacting with this field. Now, if you believe you are little me and have no power, that is a very narrow sense of self-identity, which will generate a very narrow field of band of interaction with this field of possibility and probability. And your life will reflect that like a feedback loop. Little me mentality becomes little me life. But when you expand your self-identity into I am consciousness, not the labels are my experience, you start to expand, because your expansion of self-identity means an expansion of consciousness. And you start to access more and more of this field. And this is why, and it happened to me and it happens to everybody, it goes through this awakening process. An awakening process, what is that? Awakening from the 5 senses to the greater self. Not some guy in a spaceship, the greater consciousness that this cult wants to isolate you from. And what people experience in the awakening process is suddenly the synchronicity comes into their life. People are going, well, fancy seeing you here. What's the chances of that? Oh my God, what a coincidence. And why does that happen when people go through this awakening process? Because as they expand into greater and greater swathes of potential and possibility, more becomes manifestatable as an experience. And so life starts to become an adventure. Amazing things start to happen to you. because you're no longer the little me mentality, you are the expanded me mentality. And that brings you a very, very different life.
You have to think of it not as individuals. You have to think of it as energy or consciousness. That's how you want to see this, not as the small number of humans and energies that are sort of controlling all of this. Instead of thinking about them as the ones that we are going to take down or defeat, you want to think of it as consciousness that they're playing in, that we're dissolving. It's the consciousness that we are stepping out of. It's the consciousness that we're dissolving, meaning fear, greed, manipulation, control, coercion. Those are consciousnesses. So here's the thing. If we didn't participate in fear, the humans that are controlling everything based on fear would have nothing to grab onto. They would have nothing to do. The only reason that this is unraveling the way it is because fear is the largest consciousness in the collective shadow that feeds these humans and allows them to continue to kind of expand or do what they're doing. When and if, but when the human starts to starve them of the fear consciousness, that is when it starts to dissolve. And you starve them of that consciousness by not participating and playing in fear, by not perpetuating fear, by not holding fear in your body, by not making choices based on fear. This is an energetic battle. And if we give them the ammunition of fear, then they are going to continue to do what they're doing. They're getting more ammunition because, wow, everybody's continuing to buy into the fear or the control or the coercion. Everything is energy. Your response, your reaction, your behavior, what is it based on? Imagine that is a frequency going out of your body, because it is, and it feeds the systems. That's why it is so important to make every decision and every reaction and every response out of sovereignty, out of empowerment, out of choice, out of truth, out of heart, out of a unified vision, right? Because then you're not feeding the systems. You're not feeding them. Then you're not giving them ammunition to continue to grow.
And it's that self-identity expansion that is going to bring this down. This is what's happening to the awakening, who can see through the COVID hoax, as opposed to those who can't, is that they are expanding into these greater swathes of manifestation possibility. And this is going to go on. This is what's going to bring it down.
Right.
Because this mentality that's behind this cult, this is something so important to emphasize. It's not all powerful. It's not. It's a village freaking idiot. the way it imposes its power is not by its expansive consciousness. It's by putting the population in a smaller box of awareness than it's in. Right. It is the classic manifestation, this cult, of in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It's the one-eyed man, and it has to make humans blind for it to control them. And that's why it's terrified of this awakening process, because when you become two-eyed, third-eyed humans, then the cult loses its power. And we're going to have everything thrown at us in the next 2 to 3 years. But when we get into late 2023 and particularly into 2024, I say that you're going to start to see clear evidence that the power of this cult is waning. And it's going to come down. It's going to come down. We're the people that we've been waiting for. We're going to bring an end to it.
Exactly. Now, David, I don't know about you, but I don't like being teased. And you mentioned your new book. What could possibly be in this new book that wasn't covered in this one? What could possibly? You got more to say?
A lot of things. Yeah. Where is it? This is it. Let's get it over it.
Can you give us a little more, just a little more on the chapters? What are you going to be talking about here?
It's called Perceptions of a Renegade Mind. And I go into current events, but I also go very deep in the rabbit hole in terms of where this is coming from and the actual consciousness that's behind it. The last chapter is called Escaping Watiko, which I think is, like I say, one of the most important chapters they've ever written. I talk about the renegade mind because the renegade mind is not just a critically thinking mind. You can get many, many people, they're doing it now, who can critically think and can see it, but they don't go to the next stage, which is ceasing to cooperate with it. Whereas a renegade mind, which is basically a maverick mind, not only critically thinks and sees it, it refuses to cooperate with it. When it's faced with intimidation, if you don't do what we tell you, this will happen, it will look in the eye of tyranny and say, well, you can do what you like, mate. I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. And it's this power of no that is going to bring this down. It's the power of, I don't like it, but yes, sir, I'll do it. That's what's got us into this mess. And the renegade mind, actually a renegade heart, refuses to concede its self-respect. This is the most important thing of all. This is the line in the sand, self-respect. Once you concede your self-respect, then only submission remains. And all these people that just believe what they're told and do what they're told without question, they have handed over their self-respect. And so submission remains. What the people pushing back and saying, no, I'm not doing it, are doing is they're retaining their self-respect. And self-respect is what's brought down every tyranny in history, because it's self-respect that says no. It's self-respect that says, no, I'm not doing it. No, I don't care what you threaten me with. I'm not doing it. And they are desperate to get us to concede our self-respect. And one of the way they do this, I mean, you will know this in your job, that the whole foundational basis of the COVID era and the restrictions and the impositions is not about health, it's about psychological programming. So it's all about psychology and changing psychology, because why? It's about changing perception. And we're back to what we were talking about earlier. So people say it's all stupid. I mean, they're lying to us. There's these contradictions, and they said this, and now they're saying that, and saying the other, and they're saying the other. They're crazy. They're stupid. They're incompetent. Won't you tell me who's exploiting who? I just don't know who's exploiting who. Won't you tell me who's exploiting who? I just don't know who. They want you to see it's a nonsense. They want you to see that. They want you to see the contradictions. They want you to see the lies. They want you to see all of that, the ridiculousness of it. Because if they can get you to see it, and you still do it, your self-respect is theirs. It's gone.
Wow. No one's ever broke it down to me that way.
Yeah, that's what it's for. And so this is why it's so important to not concede self-respect under any circumstances. Because when you're faced with standing up for a cause you know you should stand up for, but you are intimidated into not doing so, something dies. And what dies is your self-respect, which you'll never recover. One of the great traits of psychopaths is they'll lie for as much as necessary to get what they want. There's no shame or embarrassment in lying. You lie. Why do you lie? Because I get what I want. I mean, I worked in the mainstream media for years at the BBC, on newspapers and radio stations back in the 70s and 80s. And it was always corrupt. But you look at this global media coordinated lying on a scale that I don't think we've ever seen before. And so that's a trait of Wetiko. This ability or feeling it's okay to lie by the minute and the hour in terms of the global media, to what? To promote the agendas of the psychopaths, the super Wetiko. Wetiko is, and this is all part of how do we get out of here? Wetiko is a band of frequency. It's a very low, dense band of frequency, which resonates to the frequencies of fear and all the emotional, low vibration emotional states around fear, anxiety, depression, resentment, all these low vibrational emotional states. Every thought and every emotion that we feel and we think goes out as a frequency. You know, fear is a dense, low, slow frequency. When people are in fear and anxiety, they say, oh, I feel so heavy today. Yes, because that's what those low, slow frequencies do to your energetic field. When people feel joy and love, they say, oh, I feel so light today. Yeah, because they're fast frequencies and fast wavelengths. So therefore, they impact upon your field in a completely different way. So the point of Wetiko is to draw human consciousness into low vibrational states so that attachment, that assimilation can take place. So awakening people, what's the difference? It's their state of frequency. If your heart is open to any extent, if your mind is open to any extent, then you are operating on a frequency that's beyond the Wetiko frequency. And what we're seeing is this incredibly blatant, it's always been there, but now more blatant than ever, this division between what I would call the Wetiko and those that are awakening to beyond its frequency band, its frequency layer. And the perceptions of these two groups is so massively different now, because one is basically channeling Wetiko in terms of its perception, and the other one is processing its perceptions from a much higher level of consciousness. All the way through human history, you've seen this same recurring theme, that there is a force, a negative force, which is trying to manipulate the perceptions of humanity.
David, I believe millions of people around the world, including myself, echo your sentiments. And I certainly hope that your new book does super well, a New York Times bestseller. I hope it gets out there so that you can make enough to maybe get some air conditioning at your place, because I see you sweating bullets, brother. What's going on over there?
Touch out, make me rise. I got to move to the other side.